Hi everyone, it's Paulette from Bespoke HR and welcome to our next Bespoke HR Bite. These are little nuggets, short little takeaways that help you on your management journey to just pick up in terms of little trends that we're seeing in the workplace, a few little tips and tricks, and I guess just some suggested things that can help you as you navigate your management journey. So today we're going to be talking about performance management. It's probably something that keeps most of our staff busy, and that's queries from our clients coming about how do we do this? What can we do, in relation to this issue from a performance management perspective? So what we're going to do is share a couple of trends, some of the things that we're seeing happen in the workplace that we maybe want to avoid or get on top of. And then we're going to give you a few tips and tricks to think about that you might be able to adopt to help your journey and to help you grow and develop as a manager when you're thinking about doing this with your team. So firstly, a couple of trends. I guess, kind of the negative trends. One of the first things we see is that managers are waiting way too late to manage performance. And so in their mind, they're like, I don't want to be the bad person. I don't want to say anything. But then that is getting more irritating. It's becoming a bigger issue. It's building up. Other team members are having to do this person's work or correct this person's work. You're having to fix it up or just do it for them. And at the end of the day, then it builds up and then we kind of explode. Waiting too long is not good for the individual, it's not good for the management, and it's definitely not good for the team. So really starting to think about how do we get in early so that performance management is just not seen to be a negative thing that's brought in at the end just to get rid of people from the organisation. Performance management should be thought about early to correct, improve, and actually build the success of people within your organisation. The second kind of key trend that we're seeing is a misalignment of what people think that their roles are. So a team member and what they think is important, and a manager and what they think is important. So that lack of clarity on their role, the lack of clarity in their accountability, and the lack of clarity on the priorities of their role. They are probably one of the biggest things that we're seeing right now. The third thing I'd say is breach of values and behaviours, however, not necessarily consistently being led and or clear on what those values and behaviours are of the organisation. And this is a really important one to get clear, and we're going to talk about that in terms of the tips. But it's probably the hardest to sometimes manage if you don't have standards in place and to measure against, because then it can become quite personal. And when it becomes personal, it becomes highly emotive from both parties. The fourth kind of trend we're seeing is people are getting the human out of it. They're taking the human out of the conversation. And that's for a number of reasons. Managers are so scared at the moment to say anything. They're generally saying nothing, which is kind of what's stopping the issue from happening early. There are so many things to be aware of. With so many, people are being so careful about what they say. The outcome of that is that they're not saying anything at all, and that's even worse in some instances. And because people are trying to do things right and they're trying to do things, by the proper Fair Work rules, it sometimes means their approach can be a little bit inhuman. And unfortunately, some of the rules are set up for that. At 2 o'clock, can we meet tomorrow? You're welcome to have a support person. Not very human when you're sitting next to that person all day. Generally, what I would say is, any manager who's going through any element of performance management, and certainly the management that we talk to on a regular basis, they're not sleeping for a week before they have to have this conversation. They are up. They are really worried about the impact of what the outcome of these things are. And the consequence of that means that their body is very restrictive. It is something that their stress and their anxiety comes out when they deliver the message. Plus then you've set up this meeting in a way that is already uncomfortable. So everybody's coming into this room as a pressure cooker. So hard because, of course, we have to follow process, but I guess just a reminder that we have to bring the human to these conversations, and the commercial practicality of the logistics of how we have these conversations, because sometimes those are the things that get missed and become the bits that make things and that add an extra element of anxiety or uncomfortability to the situation, which is becoming hard to repair on the back end. Generally, when we're dealing with performance management, what we really want, or what we generally sometimes say in these conversations, is 3 things are going to happen as a result of instituting a performance management process. The first is that the person corrects their behaviour, they do what needs to get done, they understand what's important, they're given the support to succeed, and they deliver. That's kind of what the whole process is put in place to do, is to actually make people successful in the organisation. The second thing is they hear the feedback, they don't agree, they don't know how, they don't want to, they don't believe it's important, they get upset by, and they don't improve, in which case we're going to have follow-up conversations of a similar nature. Or the third is they might address in the situation that they're not sure that they want to be with the organisation anymore. They don't actually think that what the role requires is something that they can do or they're passionate about. And we have a separate conversation about, or a mutual conversation about, how do we exit from the organisation? So, exit doesn't have to be a dirty word. The worst thing is that people are in roles that they don't love, they don't want to be in, and they're not going to be successful in, because all that's going to do is potentially go back to the second option, which is not favourable for anyone. So I think it's about sometimes setting up those performance management conversations in the right way, to enable the right conversations that come out of it. So a couple of nuggets, a few kind of tips to help you on your journey. And the first one would be, I think, clear expectations are the cornerstone of performance success. So everything starts with clarity of the role. We love job descriptions, but even more so job scorecards, or 5 things that role's accountable for. If you're struggling with someone in the team, that's the easiest thing to start to think about. What does this person need to do to pay for their role? What would they need to deliver for you to think that they're performing in their role? They're the things that you want to be clear on articulating as a manager, because if you can articulate that, it's going to prioritise things for the employee that you're talking to. The second thing is, we have to change the concept that managing performance is negative, because it automatically impacts our body language, how we have conversations, how we talk to people, the follow-up afterwards, the connection within the meeting. And remember that feedback is the fuel for growth. So regular constructive insights keep your team focused on what's important within your organisation. They keep them on track and actually keeps them motivated. So we have to get excellent at managing feedback, giving and receiving feedback, and building that muscle within the organisation. Because the more you can build that muscle as a feedback conversation, the less likely it is to move to a formal performance management conversation. The third kind of thing I want to share is empowerment over micromanagement. Sometimes in these processes, we can get to a point where we're managing employees to an inch of their life, like it's every single thing that we're doing. And that person just feels trapped, like they can't do anything. And so we want to be able to set them up for success, but then we have to allow them to deliver what we want them to do. Watching to do if they do, seeing if they need any support in doing that. So empowerment over micromanagement. You have to trust your team in order for them to have some chance of actually feeling like they can achieve that task. Because if you've already lost trust, that's already a significant issue as you start to manage their performance. So what you're really asking is, why don't you trust them? Have they not exhibited behaviours to show that they can demonstrate that they can actually do the role? And therefore, we're probably dealing with a slightly different issue. Thinking about the level of involvement that you need to have is an important equation as you're moving through the performance management journey, to think about how hands-on do you need to be versus where do you actually let them try and deliver things so that you can actually be mindful of the role that you're playing in that performance management journey. The fourth is we need to recognise and reward excellence. It is much easier to catch people doing the right thing than it is the wrong thing. And making sure you're explaining when they do the right thing, why did they do the right thing? So thanks so much for putting together that team management report. That the fact that we've got that down to 2 pages now, we've got the dashboard at the front that covers kind of the key metrics that we're looking at and highlights in green, orange and red whether we're on track or off track. It has a bit from every team that's in there, and it's, you know, we summarise the actions that we want to talk about at the meeting, means that rather than having an hour meeting, we're having a 30-minute meeting. We're all on track with what needs to get done, and we're actually spending the meeting focused on the things that we need to, as opposed to the things that we can share in the report. So being able to catch people do the right thing and not just say great job, but tell them what they did that was excellent, is going to get that person to remember that great feeling of the feedback and want to do it again. So catch people doing the right thing, you're more likely they're going to do it again and again if you explain to them what it is that they did that you really loved. The last point I want to make is performance isn't just about hitting targets. In the way that we manage performance, or in the way that we're talking about managing performance and managing conduct. Often when people are talking to us about having to have a performance or a conduct conversation, it's probably linked to how they're behaving. It's probably linked to how they're interacting with other people in the team. And so having your behaviours and values clearly defined within your organisation provides a standard, it provides a benchmark for what you expect of your team. And if you don't have that clear, then sometimes those conversations can become quite personal. So really ensuring that there's clarity on your behaviours and values, what that will really do is ensure sustainable success. It will ensure people are behaving in the way that you want within the organisation, and that you're celebrating the success around the achievement of those values. So just a couple of tips to help you on your journey of managing performance. This is a massive topic. We have a 2-day mastering performance, 1 day on managing performance, 1 day on developing performance, which really breaks down in much more detail what you need to do to really get comfortable building these muscles as a manager. So feel free to check that out. Alternatively, if I or any of our team can help you on your managing performance journey, please don't hesitate to reach out. That's what we're here to do. We're happy to bounce around some strategies as to what might best work for the situation that you're trying to handle. How do you do that in the best possible way? And ultimately, how do you get the best result out of managing performance within your business? Thanks.